All right, I'm going to do number 9 on chapter 12. And number 9 says a thin 100-gram disc. So we have a disc here. That's 100 grams. And it's a thin disc. And it says with a diameter of 8 centimeters. Okay, so it has a diameter, but remember we never deal in diameters. So we're going to have a radius. The radius is going to be 4 centimeters. About an axis through its center with 0.15 joules of kinetic energy. So the kinetic energy of rotation is equal to 0.15 joules. What is the speed of a point on the rim? So what we are trying to find is V for a point out on the rim. So to do that, we're going to use what we know about the energy for a rotating object. We know that the kinetic energy of rotation is equal to 1/2 I omega squared. Okay, but we don't know what I is, so we have figured out, we look up in our table for a thin rotating disk, it's 1/2 mr squared. So I plug that in, I say, oh, so kinetic energy of rotation is equal to 1/2 of mr squared omega squared. So what we want to find out is what omega is, and then once we find out what omega is, we can solve for the velocity, because we know that we can just multiply it by the multiply it by the radius to get the velocity. But we're given the kinetic energy of rotation, so we're just going to solve this for omega. So I want to solve this for omega, so this becomes equal to 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4 mr squared omega squared. If I solve this for omega, it's going to be the square root of the kinetic energy, 4 times the kinetic energy over mr squared. And if I plug in those numbers, I have, this is going to be 4 times the kinetic energy is 0.15. Mass is grams, but I have to convert that, so that becomes 0.1 kilograms times the radius is 0.04 square. When I do that, I get what omega is. When I calculate what omega is, I get, just a second, I get that omega is equal to 61.2 radians per second. Okay, and then I want to find V. Well, V is just equal to omega R, and I want it for the outer rim, so it's just 61.2 times 0.04, and I get a velocity of 2.4 meters per second. That's the answer to number 9.